Good Friday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns out in Berea getting ready for that incredibly important matchup in Baltimore against the Ravens Sunday at 1 o'clock. And some news that is not great for Browns fans. DeJuan Jones is out. In addition to that, David Bell, Marquise Goodwin also out. Greg Newsome, Pierre Strong listed as questionable for Sunday's game with the first place Baltimore Ravens. So with Jones out, it is James Hudson and Jaron Christian at the starting tackles. Kevin Stefanski on the line, and also about Jaron Christian.
Yeah, he's a pro with Leroy as well, you know, different stages of their career. But you add guys to your program, you know, I think about, you know, Prochet, guys come into the program late. You get to know them, you get them up to speed, and then, you know, sometimes you throw them out there and they're ready to roll because they work very hard at it. So that happens oftentimes in the NFL. Guys are playing sometimes in a game where they just showed up that week, sometimes 2 weeks, whatever it may be. But that's part of our job as coaches to get those guys ready to play, and then their job as pros to prepare themselves. And those guys have done a nice job.
With that, let's welcome in Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report and the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Brad, not ideal when you're facing a defense like the Ravens, but the Browns with Kevin Stefanski and Bill Callahan have kind of worked through these situations somewhat successfully before.
Yeah, we've seen them pull off some miracles before with Dunn and Blake Hansen in the past, right? So in Bill Callahan we trust, right? We hope that they can get him ready for this one. This is a tall order, certainly. I would say that, you know, Nick Harris taking 18 snaps at fullback last week. Maybe see just as many this week in more of pass protect help too. You know, he's kind of become, you know, finding a way to get another alignment on the field that way. Maybe a big key to helping whichever side they need to help on. That's the question though, right? Like, where you can't help all the time, all the places, right? So that is the problem. That the Ravens are going to certainly present for the Browns, but we'll see what they dial up. This is a big spot where they're going to have to lean hard into Stefanski and Bill Callahan's schematic understanding of trying to protect their quarterback with guys that just aren't really equipped to be playing where they are this weekend, right? Against this defense especially.
Yeah, and you know, the one thing about Christian, he does have, I believe it's 16 or 18 NFL starts, so it's not like he hasn't seen what he's going to see on Sunday afternoon. All right.
Yeah.
So one thing that will be different from the first matchup where the Browns lost 28-3, Deshaun Watson will be the starting quarterback, looking decent. John Harbaugh on Watson and what he brings to the Browns offense.
Deshaun's a playmaker. You know, that's the thing. He's gonna do it on time with the rhythm passing, quick game. He can do it with the play action, the boots and the drop, you know, the play action stuff off of their zone run game, and then he can do it as far as extending the play. Both as far as running, and then also I think he does a really good job on the run to find receivers when he's moving out of the pocket. So playmaking quarterback.
John, when you're playing division teams, especially for the second time, how much do you take from what worked the first time you played those teams?
Well, you do take a lot of that, and then you kind of try to extrapolate a little bit about what their answer might be, and then what you're going to need to do to counter that. I mean, it's kind of a guessing game there, but you don't want to, you know, stop the play for them. You know, you want to make sure that you test them a little bit, and I'm sure they'll test us and make sure that we can defend not only the plays that were successful against us the last time, but the ones that have been successful by other teams too.
So, Brad, I know the Orange and Brown Report asked the insiders, you've answered this. Why do you think Deshaun struggled with those short passes against the Cardinals?
He looked anxious. I thought his feet didn't look set early. I thought he was rushing a little. Everything seemed to be low and behind his receivers. Now, some of that can be just not connecting with the, you know, not having the reps, right? Like, so, you know, he physically sometimes shows his frustration on the field, and you could see that a couple times where maybe he thought a guy was going to continue moving, and he stops, and then the ball looks low and wide because of that. So some of that can be miscommunication, but I thought a lot of it early in that game before he really settled down and looked better in the second half was just kind of being anxious, and that's understandable, right? Coming off that injury, trying to get reacclimated to game speed. That is all difficult stuff. But certainly he looked like he was rushing a couple of those early throws.
Yeah, and again, you hope it's that he was anxious because that's easily correctable. You don't want it to be something that's more nuanced, if you will. Take a look at this, and I know you've seen this. Quarterback production when blitzed versus when not blitzed. So when blitzed is the y-axis, that's up and down. When not blitzed is the y-axis across. That orange dot really low when blitzed is our quarterback, Deshaun Watson. And that's not where you want to be, especially against the Ravens, who do like to bring blitzes from all over. Normally you would say, man, I hope they blitz Deshaun Watson because he'll make him pay. It hadn't been the case. I mean, that's been kind of his MO in the past.
Yeah, I would. It's a hard graph to look at, certainly. But I would say, once again, not trying to make excuses, but weather game, injury, coming back from the injury, nothing has been normal this year, right? So it's hard to really judge him on performance, statistics like that, incredibly harshly because the Bengals game was a mess. The Steelers game he played very poorly in, right? So yeah, a lot of that probably comes from some of that, but he hasn't really had a chance to find his footing, right? As soon as he did, he got hurt. So we saw him play well in the Titans game, and he got hurt. So he came out and he seemed to find a rhythm in this Cardinals game. What to expect on Sunday? I mean, that's really anybody's best guess. Right? We don't know really what to expect, especially against this defense. I'm really just hoping that he can manage the game and not turn it over. If you go back to two of the Browns' losses, the Steelers game and the Seahawks game, Dave, a average quarterback play protecting the football would have got you out of both of those games with wins, right? So I'm not asking for him to be old Deshaun Watson right now. I just want him to be an average, league average quarterback right now.
Yeah.
I know that seems crazy for a guy that got paid that kind of money.
Well, if you look to the third game,
that's where we're at.
If you look to the third game, the Ravens, you had 3 turnovers. 2 of them, one of them gave you a 10-yard field, the other gave you a 38-yard field, and the third one was, you were climbing uphill. Yeah, I hear you. All right, let's go to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
Hey, I'm James, Cleveland native living in Georgia. I'd like to see more of Elijah and James Crochet.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Let me ask you this, and again, I know this is from your Ask the Insiders on the Orange and Brown Report. Do you want to see deeper routes with Elijah Moore? And I mean, they've gotten it to Cooper, but man, you haven't been able to unlock the speed that you brought in, and Prochet's another guy that kind of fills in because Goodwin's not there.
Yeah, they really haven't been able to unlock anybody else, right? Downfield. And there's a lot of questions about that, right? I thought that question was posed to Deshaun directly, and he doesn't have to answer for P.J. Walker's play, certainly, but it's hard to say, man. They started out with a lot of the gadget stuff, the jet sweeps, the wide receiver screens with Moore, and that's okay sometimes, right? But like you're saying, yeah, I want to see him push the ball down the field. He's a good route runner. He snaps off routes well. Although there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect there too. a couple times. We saw him have a step. Generally, the saying is, if I'm even, I'm leaving with a cornerback, right? And if he's playing over the top, then he's gonna on a go route, the wide receiver will stop and turn off the route and cut it off and look for a comeback ball. And generally, the quarterback and wide receiver are on the same page that way. We saw several times where Moore was ahead of the defensive back, but still snapped off the route, and the quarterback threw the ball deep, misunderstanding, right? So they need to get on the same page that way, because that certainly could open one deep ball, one touchdown for Elijah Moore. I feel like would open up some things for him, right? Like it's like a block right now. He did a nice job catching a couple balls in the last game. He got him into field goal range on that play that got reviewed at the end of the half on a nice route over the middle. It's just, he needs to be the number 2 wide receiver. I mean, they traded DPJ out. He has to be the guy. So, and he's open, right? Like on the tape, he's open. I just don't know at this point in the season if, PJ Walker was never really getting off his first read. So we should finally have a chance here for Deshaun to maybe unlock that a little bit. When he was playing earlier in the season, Moore was not really running those kind of routes that often, right? So this should be the game that you hope to see that. You have Marlon Humphrey back, but he's not the Marlon Humphrey that we're used to. He's not totally healthy, right? So, it's tough. They're going to have some stuff dialed up, Dave. They're going to have to be really creative to find success on offense this week. I really think the coaching this week, right, offensively, defensively, is going to play such a huge part. You're going to have to win that schematic war with the other team and find a way to create some open receivers and some big plays.
Yeah, and it's going to be compounded because you've got your 4th and 5th tackles starting, because your 2 starters are out, your top backup in Dwan Jones is out. So you're gonna have to cheat, max protect. You're gonna have fewer people in the routes, but you better dial up a couple of them that work, because you're gonna need to. Brad Ward and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll dial in a little deeper in this Browns-Ravens matchup. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
An Ohio lottery machine. The holiday scratch-offs are worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Non-winning tickets have a second chance.
Is that Marion Bright? The first ever $1 million holiday game! Hello? You can get them now? I'm gonna go ask if I can play.
We continue talking Browns with Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report and the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Former NFL wide receiver T.J. Houshmandzadeh on if he believes more in Lamar Jackson or the Browns defense.
I got to roll with Lamar because he's been consistently great since he stepped into the league. And football is a complementary sport. And yeah, the Browns have a great defense, but the Ravens' defense is so good that they are going to keep Lamar in the game. Number 1 in points allowed in the league defensively. And so as bad as you want to say Cleveland's defense, oh, they dominate. They do. When you look at Myles Garrett, Za'Darius Smith on the edge, what Jim Schwartz has brought to that defense, I don't know what he's done, but Joe Woods last year, it makes him look like, what were you doing as a coach? Because this defense really is what you said. They're basically impenetrable. It's hard to get yards, but Lamar is just playing at a different level this year. And they can run the ball, they can pass the ball. But more than anything else, if he's not playing well, like you spoke of in the first week, the first time they played, yeah, Lamar had a good game, but he had 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns. But his defense won him the game.
Correct.
And so their defense is good enough, whereas Cleveland's offense,
good point.
they got to bring something to the party.
Yeah.
Brett, without question. The one thing I'll say about Lamar, Lamar is a guy when it's going well, it piles on. you can get him frustrated, and he hasn't been frustrated a lot this year. He's only thrown 3 picks. I think it's 12 sacks or 21 sacks he's taken. So he's had 3 different games where he's been sacked 4 times.
He's had a fumbling issue too. Like he's fumbled the ball a lot and actually gotten a lot of them back, Dave. So that is kind of a point of emphasis that I was looking at in this one. I totally agree. Like you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. Like if you can get him flustered or get him thinking about what he's doing, if Schwartz can present some stuff that confuses him on the back end. And buys a little bit of time for the front to create pressure, I think that you can get to him. The problem is the Browns are so used to their identity is just hair on fire, create penetration, and we're going to fill in behind you, fix it with the linebackers, right? You can't do that against against Lamar, right? Because you'll just leave running lanes open. So they're going to have to be more true in their gap integrity and in their rush lane discipline, or else you create run lanes for him, and that's where he kills you. The other problem there when you're, with the defense is they're better in man-to-man, and they've struggled in zone. And typically against Lamar Jackson, you don't want your corners turning your back to him, right? Because if he does escape, then it turns into a huge play because you've got your corners playing man with their back to the ball. Which is why you want to play zone, but that is where they've struggled the most in coverage. So a couple issues there that they need to work out this week and figure out how they're going to play him exactly. But I wrote in my things I think I know that it really is, and going back to coaching again, they really need Schwartz to dial up a beauty in this one, right? And we've seen coaches do it before. A couple of years ago, the Dolphins ran cover 0 the entire game and blitzed him, and he really struggled with that. So not saying that that's going to be the game plan. That would be a little reckless. But there are teams that have put together game plans over the years. The Chargers in the playoff game, right, shutting them down, that have found ways to give him things to look at that have created problems for him passing the ball and bottle them up in the run. So it's not impossible. We've seen it done, to your point, and it will snowball the other way if you can get it going that way.
Yeah, without question. Myles Garrett today talked to the media, and he talked about the need for relentless effort against Lamar Jackson.
Maybe if you're double teamed or you fall on a play, you think, ball's going to be out. I mean, possibly. They have a good percentage of plays that get out within 2 seconds, but they also lead the league with pass plays that are over 3 seconds, where he's holding the ball, he's scrambling, he's sitting behind the line trying to find someone and wait till someone's open, or he's making it happen himself and finding a lane. So you have to just know that you might be playing for 6 seconds, you might be playing for 15 seconds on one play, but don't assume the play is over just because something happens or you're in a bad position, because he would be the one to hold it and make a play.
And again, there's also opportunity that comes with that for the defense. That's the unstated that he won't say.
No, absolutely there is. When he gets out creating the ball and he's holding the ball like a loaf of bread running around, and that does create opportunity, and it creates opportunity for turnover and takeaways. And this defense, though, has part of why this defense is so easy to root for is because they do go so hard and they never stop pursuing. So I don't worry about that with them. They have guys, they have defensive tackles running down, run plays 10 yards down the field. They don't stop, right? And I'm sure it's getting pounded into their head this week too. So it's a key point, certainly. But Myles makes a terrific point there. And although you said he didn't say it, it does create the opportunity where, Lamar has kind of had a fumbling issue this year. That's where you can create those.
So this is kind of interesting relative to Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. This season, he has 14 tackles for loss or no gain. It's tied for first in the NFL. Take a look at this. This is kind of weird as well. Snap count. So weeks 1 through 6, JOK was on the field 73% of the time. And this coming from Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report as well. Does great work, one of your colleagues there. Weeks 7 through 9, down to 52% of the snap count. A couple of it could be as simple as there's Jonathan Taylor, there's Kenneth Walker, there were bigger backs, or is it something more involved than that?
I asked about this, and I was told it is nothing performance related. I am told that it is more of trying to keep him rested and healthy. And to that point, he hasn't really been healthy for a full season, right? So that does make sense. I would think in this game of all games, this is the game you need him to be out there 80% of the time, though, right? So if we look at the snap counts after this one, Dave, against Lamar Jackson, and they are down still around 50%, I'll have even more serious questions about that. But I was told it's not performance related and it's more about rest and keeping him fresh.
Well, Tony Fields has played well, without question. That's the guy that they subbed in for him. He's shown he belongs without question. All right, so the question becomes key matchups for this. How do the Browns get a win, a much-needed win, if they want to be in the mix for that? Let's be honest. If they don't win this, the AFC North is kind of a pipe dream at this point.
Yeah, if you want a chance at the division, you've got to get this one. The season certainly isn't over if you lose. You can get in the playoffs with the schedule that they have to play after this, but you can't go 1-4 in the division, right? So this has to be a win if they want. And it really presents them a great opportunity, Dave, because it gives them the ability to – this would be a massive statement win if they could find a way to do it. So I do think that we will still see a rather conservative early start offensively. And I don't think that the Browns want to get in a shootout with the Ravens, right? So they are going to try, even with their tackles, to be efficient in the run game, play ball control, try to keep Lamar on the sidelines, take their shots when they're there. Deshaun has done a relatively good job in the last 2 times he's played a full game of protecting the football, right? No turnovers. So take the shots when they're there, try to run the ball. You can't play from behind, right? If they get behind in this game and they are in a negative game script, they're in trouble. So you have to keep it neutral or ahead, right? We know Stefanski's good at those scripted first 15 scripted plays. We'll see what this Ravens defense is showing them. But the recipe here is it has to be turnovers, right? Turnovers have been so critical. So if you can run the ball effectively and play a clean game, stay ahead of it was a couple weeks ago, they never got behind the sticks. It was always 3rd and 3, right? I think it was the Seattle game, right? They were in 3rd and 3 every single 3rd down. That's kind of what you're looking for, right? You can't be in 1st and 15s, holding calls, stuff like that, which is why I think you're still going to see a lot of running on early downs and things like that. It's a kitchen sink game, though. Look for a trick play here or there. Try to get a cheap one. And you got to lean hard with your defense and hope that Schwartz can dial up an absolute gem of a game plan that gives Lamar problems. Listen, I think the Browns can win this game. I do. I think that the Ravens have won a lot lately, but for some reason they dominate NFC opponents. I don't know. He's 17-1 against NFC opponents or something crazy like that. And they've been kind of taking them to the woodshed. But this is an AFC North divisional game. I expect it to be close. I expect the Browns to have a chance to make plays to win the game. The difference this year from past years is they've been making some of those plays, right? That's why they are 5-3 with PJ Walker starting, 3 games. So you have guys on this team that will make big plays. You need a couple of them. Every game is decided by those, 4, 5, 6 plays that will turn the tables. The Browns have to make those plays in a close game, and they certainly can. So I think it's a winnable game. I think it would be massive, but everything's got to go right. Turnovers will be the killer here and their demise. If they turn it over offensively, the Ravens will take advantage and they'll be in trouble. But play clean offensively, even if it's not explosive, even if it's a little conservative, it'll keep you in the game and give your defense a chance to make plays.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I'll take it a step further. Deshaun Watson, the reason you got him is to go make 2 or 3 of those 5 plays that you need to win games like this one. Brad Ward, Orange and Brown Report, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Brad.
Thank you, Dave. You're the best, man.
Brad Ward, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff. Orange and Brown Report, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Lance Reisland with a video breakdown of some of the adjustments and some of the concerns for the Browns-Ravens. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Browns getting ready to face the Ravens in Baltimore Sunday at 1 o'clock in the rematch. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland, Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. A little bit of some video analysis of some changes that the Browns could make. And Lance, when you look at it, the game got away from the Browns first meeting without question, 28-3. Probably not quite as bad as that score would indicate.
Well, the Browns proved that you got to play all 3 phases, right? So they played very poorly on offense. You know, credit to DTR. He didn't know he's playing in the game. That's a tough matchup coming to a game, and then the Ravens is your first test. So they didn't play complimentary football. The Ravens did have 2 good drives where they trapped and whammed and kicked the Browns out, kind of used their aggression against them. Monken did a really good job of finding some matchups with the linebackers and strong safety types. But really it came down to they only had 2 drives. They still had six 3-and-outs against the Ravens. So they played really good defense. The one drive they scored on was 10 yards. The other drive they scored on was 38 yards. So it was kind of misleading. They did have some success. But early on, those first couple games, the Browns were playing at a legendary pace, best defense ever kind of pace. So they averaged out. It kind of it all caught up with them a little bit. And Monken did have a good plan. Browns are going to be better this week. They're going to have a really good plan. Schwartz is really good at it. And I think having that first film is really going to help them coming into, the game this weekend.
All right, let's take a look at some keys and some things to pay attention to in this rematch. Take us through the first clip here, what you see and what you like with it.
So this is the big play. This is I thought last year his best throw was to Njoku, which we went over last year. This is his best throw as a Cleveland Brown. Why? Because he kind of recognizes. So there's a lot to this play. First of all, you're going to see, as the play rewinds a couple times, you're going to see Budda Baker, the safety. He's going to show like he's blitzing. Watson's going to look over to his left and kind of mess with those receivers, switch him. But he knows because the other free safety, Jalen Thompson, is over on the hash. And with that safety being over on the hash, he knows that Budda Baker, who's at the line of scrimmage, has to get to that deep pass. And by doing that, him and Cooper, I heard Stefanski say we kind of drew it up. Well, Cooper's going to do a great job because Cooper is going to attack that corner. Antonio Hamilton, he's going to attack outside and kind of get him widened. And Watson knows that Budda Baker being so close to the line of scrimmage and the other safety being on the other hash, they try to hide it. But he knows that Budda Baker's going to be too flat, and then he just makes a great throw. This answered a lot of the questions about his ability to throw deep. He got hit a bunch of times. This could be the game that Watson kind of gets it going and kind of the Watson everybody's thinking they're going to get. This is a really good throw, and this is what you see a ton of in 2020, and hopefully what Browns fans will see moving forward.
So attacking vertical, kind of a messaging point there. Are you concerned at all that you have possibly your third and fourth tackles. You certainly won't have your first and second. You might have, DeJuan Jones. You might not. So you might even be on your fourth and fifth tackles as I talk through it.
Well, yeah, you got to make sure you help. Stefanski, he does a really good job of helping you. If you look like Zach Taylor down in Cincinnati, he likes to get 5 out all the time. So Stefanski will do a really good job of chipping and helping those tackles. DeJuan Jones, if he's healthy, has proven that he doesn't need a lot of help. I'm a big fan of Hudson. I think Hudson's had to learn under fire over the last couple of years, so he's only going to get better. He is a much better player right now. But I think what you get is that if they can protect a little bit, I think they have some matchups that they can win in the secondary. I know Humphrey's a good corner, but he's a guy that I think Cooper can attack. They have to pass protect. Again, this defense is really good in the front seven, and the reason I think vertical is so important is because it's hard to go 10, 12, 13 plays against a really good defense. And that's why I always say, when the Browns are, Browns to punt the ball. Both defenses are so good, it's going to be hard for both teams to really extend drives. They can occasionally. The Ravens did it twice against the Browns, but they only did it twice last time, and everybody thinks the Browns defense played bad. 194, 173. Besides that, the Browns shut them down. So the Browns need big plays. They won't get no one will have in the NFL will have long drives against the Ravens. They need to get some chunk plays, and that comes in the vertical pass game.
So the other thing that they have to do a better job of is dealing with Lamar Jackson. He got on a little bit of a roll. And take us through this clip, what you see here.
So this is Todd Monk special here. So this is zone read like everybody runs in the NFL, and everybody has a version of this. But you can see Nelson Aguilar come over in motion. He's going to block. You're going to see Patrick Ricard, who's 6'3", 300 pounds. He's a fullback. You're going to see them both arc release. The Ravens are going to run zone to their left, and he's going to read Taylor, number 52, that defensive end. What Taylor does for the Seahawks is you're going to see him. He goes way down inside. So that's who Jackson's reading. That's who all quarterbacks are reading. They're reading that backside end on zone read. Now, with the Ravens, they get a couple lead blockers out in front. So if Taylor was to go upfield or stay there, he will give the ball to Justice Hill here or one of their really good backs, Gus Edwards, etc. But with Taylor going down inside, he keeps it. Now he's got two players. He's got two guys out in front of him lead blocking. The Browns have to really say, you know what? I know they run the ball very well, but that end's got to stay upfield and go attack Jackson and make him give the ball. You can live or die. If Gus Edwards and these tailback beat you, great. Can't lose the game to a best player. That's a coach's rule, right? You can't lose the best player. The best player on the Ravens offense is Lamar Jackson. Even though Monken's made him good in the pocket, has made him good outside the pocket, you got to get the ball out of his hands. So in this read run game, they got to attack Jackson, make him hand the ball off.
And again, Jackson had a pretty good first game. But as we look at this next clip, take us through what you like here. This is from the Browns game in Week 4 here.
So here's what you got. So here's the next progression of this. So here's what. So down at the top of the screen, you're going to see Alex Wright. Alex Wright is going to close. So what he's going to do. What I mean by that is he's going to come down. You're going to see the right guard and right tackle pull, and he's going to follow him. Well, that's who Jackson's read is. So this is called bash. So if the end was to go upfield, Jackson will keep the ball and he'll run the counter with that guard and tackle. Because Wright closes, it comes down to his right. He gives the ball up. Now this is what the Browns want. Now this is where the Browns got to make plays here. Now the ball's in Justice Hill hand. This is JOK. He easily beats Nelson Aguilar, who can't block him. He's got to make this tackle in space. So the Browns defensive line has got to make Jackson give the ball up on the read run game, and then the Browns, which they've done a pretty good job this year, have to do a good job of tackling in space. This is what you want. Wright makes him give up the ball here. He's reading Wright. Wright closes. He gives. Again, the Browns got to tackle in space, and this is a no gain, which should have been a no gain on this particular bash scheme that the Ravens ran.
Yeah, and when you look at that, it's almost like he didn't take the angle to the ball carrier that he needed to on that particular play. And I'm speaking about JOK. Has got a few more yards than he should have. All right, when we look at this fourth and final one, take us through this clip and the importance of it here.
Well, you're going to see. So what happened with the Browns? They gave up a big run here, but what happened was the Browns live and die, and they will continue that with penetration. And what the Browns needed to do a little better job of is, even though they're going to penetrate, trying to get their hands on the offensive lineman a little bit. So you're going to see Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith, they just get upfield here, and they don't read the tackle at all. And what ends up happening, it becomes an easy kick out for that guard coming. So they're going to run the counter here. This is the bash read. He's going to give it, and you're going to see Gordon's able to almost get a touchdown because the Browns are so much upfield. So the Browns have to really work on attacking, though. Even though they're going to attack a gap, they've got to get their hands of the offensive lineman in front of them and not worry so much about getting upfield. Now, that's their MO, and that's what they do, and I like the attack. But by getting your hands on the line of scrimmage, on those offensive linemen, you're going to be at the line of scrimmage a little bit more. You're going to be harder to get kicked out or trapped or whammed. And most importantly, it's going to protect that second level so those linemen can't climb and block those guys. And here's what you had. You had guys who didn't get their hands on, and those offensive linemen get right to the second level. And if those offensive linemen get right to the second level, the Browns are in trouble. So they got to do a little better job, and they will. They'll do a much better job of getting their hands on this week and let those second level guys run.
The other thing, and again, that's another one where it almost looks like the safety there, Thornhill, didn't take a great route to the ball carrier. He misjudged how fast the ball carrier was as he's closing from his free safety spot.
Well, if you think about this is the only time these guys, they're getting better at this. This is the only time they've had any action through the first month of the season.
Yep.
The first 3 games, they just absolutely dominated. So you're right. I think a lot of those guys just got their fundamentals and their techniques got a little bit out of whack in the secondary because they didn't have to do much for the front, first 4 games. The front 7 took care of everything. So those are things they're working on. You watch that in film, and I guarantee you, just like you said, he's saying it. He doesn't need to be a coach. He's a good football player. He's saying, I got to take a better angle. And they'll get that, but they didn't have any guys in the secondary. Ravens are a good football team. They're going to break some runs. The Browns are a feast or famine kind of defense where they're going to pressure and create big plays. And when you do that, you're going to give up some big plays. And what they got to do when they give up the big plays is just tackle. They got to give up, a 10-yard run and not a 30, or a 15-yard pass and not a 50-yard pass. So those are things that come with reps. Those are things that come with playing good teams. The Browns have now played some good teams. They have some film. Browns defense is going to be very good on Sunday. I have no question about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the second time around with any Jim Schwartz coach defense, he will make the necessary adjustments, and you can be sure they will be ready to face the Ravens. Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thank you for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Always really good video analysis, film breakdown, cleveland.com, as well as the pages of The Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
An Ohio lottery machine. The holiday scratch-offs are worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Non-winning tickets have a second chance.
Is that Miriam Bright? The first ever $30 holiday game! No. You can get them now? I'm gonna go ask if I can play.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Emmanuel Acho from FS1 Speak on if he believes more in Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson or this Browns defense.
Myles Garrett is a front runner as it stands right now for Defensive Player of the Year. Y'all have seen him play. He's hurdling people on field goal. He's blocking kicks. He's getting 3.5 sacks in different games. He's single-handedly winning games. Look no further than the Indianapolis Colts game. Myles Garrett and this defense, TJ, Myles Garrett and this defense, Joy, they have been absolutely phenomenal. I actually have more faith in the Browns defense. It's not to say that they will win the game, but it is to say that at a minimum, they will do a great job containing Lamar Jackson. Remember, last time they met each other, the Ravens offense had 296 yards. 296 yards. Yeah. Not a lot of yards. 28 points, but don't just look at the score. I rewatched the game this morning. 14 of those points came off turnovers. The quarterback was Dorian Thompson-Robinson, a 5th-round pick out of UCLA. He wasn't even elite in college. Let's not get it twisted. So when I'm thinking about it, TJ and Joy, I actually have more faith in the Browns defense.
With that, let's welcome in Jacob Roach from BrownsWire.com. And Jacob, if the Browns find a way to contain Lamar Jackson, I think they win the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've said it about some other situations. Like when you play the Steelers, you always say like TJ Watt's going to get his, but limit what other guys can do and limit going too over the top. And I kind of think that's where it is with this defense and Lamar Jackson, where it's like Lamar's going to do some scoring. Lamar's going to make some electric runs, make a couple of big time throws like he did the last time we saw him. You know he's going to get a certain amount, but I think the contain word that you used is perfect. Limit what he can do. I mean, this team last week beat Seattle on the backs of 298 rushing yards, and a lot of that coming from Keaton Mitchell. It's like limit Lamar. Don't allow him to just do what he wants in the pocket because, we always talk about him not being a pocket passer. He's been incredibly efficient from the pocket this year. So the whole point, do not allow him to get out, use his legs, limit big, massive plays, and just find a way, to don't allow yards after a catch, and just if you can contain a little bit of the explosive plays and limit Lamar to 250 yards, I absolutely think you can win.
All right, I know you wrote an article, 3 biggest surprises for the Browns halfway through the 2023 season. Number 1 on the list, defensive tackle Jordan Elliott. Number 2 on the list, a guy that isn't going to be able to play in this one is, we mentioned earlier, DeJuan Jones ruled out. And number 3, another one of those defensive tackles, Maurice Hurst. It's not a surprise 2 of the 3 guys were from that question mark group of the defensive tackles.
Yeah, especially considering one of those guys was part of the awful group, last year in Jordan Elliott. He was part of that terrible group, and it's like I've sat on any show that'll listen to me and said how bad I thought Jordan Elliott was as a player going into this year. I wrote a piece in like April that he should get cut, and there was nothing he could do. And then training camp comes around, and Jim Schwartz starts talking. It's another coach saying how great Jordan Elliott's been in practice and training camp, and then he struggled in the preseason, and then they flip on the regular season switch, and he's a legitimate, solid contributor. He's had a couple of pass rush snaps, including the sack that he had this past weekend, where the offensive line stood absolutely no chance of containing Jordan Elliott. He's made several plays like that, where he did it against Indianapolis too, where it was just like exploded off the line of scrimmage, shed the offensive lineman, get into the backfield, which is what he did at Missouri, which is why he was a day 2 pick, and people like myself, we were excited about him coming into the NFL. He was very productive, and he was he reminded me a lot of what Isaiah McGuire did coming into this class, where they were both Missouri pass rushers, where I was like, yeah, these guys can play. And all of a sudden, Jordan Elliott is getting quarterback pressures. He's not getting shoved around in the run game either. So, don't get it twisted. Jordan Elliott's playing really well in both facets of the game right now. And I had never seen anything like it from him. So it's been really fun to eat crow on that and be wrong about him being bad and him playing well. But you switch to DeJuan Jones, and I talked about it in the article, that it's not that I didn't think DeJuan Jones had this ability, because DeJuan Jones for me had a 1st-round grade in April's draft. It was just that I'm surprised he's this good so quickly. He stepped onto the field in the first half of the first game, bad weather conditions against the Bengals. He just steps in and he hasn't missed a beat. He needs to really work on some of his hand technique and stuff in the run game, although I think he's played a lot better. But as a pass protector, DeJuan Jones has been as good of a tackle as the Browns have had in several years, not named Jack Conklin, of course. But he's gone out there, not missed a beat right out the gate. Obviously, he's not playing this weekend, but I vehemently think we have the right tackle of the future for the next 5 to 10 years in DeJuan Jones. I just didn't think we'd have that already. And so that was the biggest surprise. That was the surprise aspect of it for me, was just how quickly he'd gone. And then you go to Maurice Hurst. Again, like you said, this has been a drastic change at defensive tackle. Maurice Hurst was absolutely a lottery ticket. You absolutely took a guy that really hasn't been that productive since 2018, a lot of injuries. But if you go watch his rookie tape in Oakland, he's a relentless pass rusher. I mean, that motor goes and goes and goes. He will play through the whistle. You'll never, ever question the effort of Maurice Hurst when he's on the field. He has now stayed healthy, and part of that is that he's playing in a rotation to where he's not an every down guy. He's a situational guy, and he's doing a lot of cleanup work and a lot of heavy lifting when the pass rushers of Myles Garrett and the outside guys just forcing people to the inside, and people can't climb the pocket and escape like they used to against the Browns defensive tackles, and Hurst plays a big part in that.
Yeah, and again, the big question was, could he stay healthy? He has been, and he's been really good, without question. So this is from Browns Pro Football Focus. Take a look at this. Grant Delpit, 22 defensive stops this season. leads all safeties. That's another guy that you kind of said, are we going to – he was a lot of people's candidate for a breakout player just because he hadn't done it at a consistent – you're starting to see why the Browns took him high in the second round.
And I feel like he's been a breakout player candidate last year as well, the last 2 years, both this year and last year. A lot of people said that, and I think I was one of them, to be completely honest, because I really like Grant Delpit. He led NFL safeties and stop tackles last year. Like that's something that needs to be added, that this dude plays the run as good as he does the pass as well, because he doesn't care. Put him in the box, put him in the slot, put him at corner, put him at free safety. He doesn't care. Grant Delpit is a weapon. He's not a safety to me anymore. He's just a defensive weapon. You put him wherever you need him to. He can rush the passer as a blitzer. He has a good strength profile to shed off of pulling offensive linemen to attack in the run game. He's not afraid of physicality. He's a good athlete. He's the kind of guy, I wish they've already extended him. I thought they could extend him during the bye week. I would have extended him during the bye week. I think he's now earned a couple million more per year since the bye week that you lost out on maybe getting a little bit of a discount. But, when you've got a player that can go all over the field, and it's just like they finally have the depth to allow him to move around. And I think that's the most important aspect, that Jim Schwartz is just like, okay, well, where in this situation, in this alignment, in this personnel package, where would Grant, do his most damage? And he has the freedom to do that. And I think that has been huge. And I think Delpit, man, like I'd sign Delpit to an extension right now, because I think the next 5 or 6 years he's going to look exactly like he does right now.
So here is an interesting one. We've talked about how good the Browns' defensive line has been, and the reason it is so important is you put it in tandem with what their cornerbacks have done. Lowest passer rating allowed by cornerbacks. So you see Adebo lowest, Bland 37, Robinson 40.6. Then fourth and fifth are the Browns' outside corners, and that's passer rating allowed. So Martin Emerson 41.7, Denzel Ward 53.4. That's usually because Ward's matching up against a tougher guy, but fourth and fifth in the league are the Browns' two outside corners.
And you should see there's a stat out there. I wish I knew it off the top of my head here, but that passer rating in single coverage for Martin Emerson is in the 20s. He's only allowing, if he's in single coverage and man coverage against people, he's allowing like a 28 passer rating against them, which is just an absolute insane number, considering he's a second-year player that came out of nowhere. Nobody really knew who he was in Cleveland when they drafted him in the third round. And a lot of that had to do with they wouldn't throw it at Martin Emerson in college. He did not have the stats, the interceptions, and the recognition because he just shut guys down and they never even attempted it. Well, now we're starting to see that again in Cleveland come alive. And I just think, like, I'm not a big jersey guy anymore, but I have that 23 jersey in my cart for Christmas. I think that we're going to have to bring that home just because, like, I love the way Martin Emerson plays the game, man. Like, and that's not to take away from Denzel Ward at all, because Denzel's playing top 10 cornerback play right now. But Martin Emerson, I just think you can't create a mismatch with Martin Emerson in the sense that he can play big and physical wide receivers, and he can play short, or not shorter, but like more dynamic and quicker wide receivers. He may not have the straight line speed that like Denzel does, but I think he can be effective in any type of against any type of wide receiver. And Denzel, it was kind of a down year for him. I was very hard on him. I was a big critic of his last year. He's just gone out there and quietly been one of the best corners in football again. And that extension suddenly doesn't look so bad anymore. But when you got a pass rush like the Browns do, these corners, they don't have to hold coverage for 2 or 3 seconds, because if the quarterback has the ball after 2 seconds, he's probably going down against this defense. And it's just been all around where the pass rush complements the linebackers and complements the coverage units and everything, and vice versa. And it's been so much fun to watch.
All right, so here is a concerning thing. This is from Brad Spielberger, Pro Football Focus. Ravens lead the NFL with 16 red zone rushing touchdowns. Gus Edwards has 7. Lamar Jackson has 5. When they get inside the 20, they've been nearly unstoppable, and you saw that a little bit first matchup, week 4. with Browns Ravens. So that is a concern. That's something you got to figure that out.
Yeah, I think that Todd Monken and Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh did a really good job at looking at how the Browns defense what was working against their run defense, and they schemed it up just perfectly against them in that first matchup, where it was just they understood they were going to play wide, so that inside zone, that right up the middle, where your defensive linemen are kind of vacated because they're not playing in that power system. I think they looked at it and they were like, hey, we can exploit these matchups. And they did it all day long, against them in that first matchup. But I'm really excited about this game because I think you're going to get a really ticked off, very motivated defense going up against them. And it's just, they had been the talk of the NFL, and that was their first bad game when they go against the Ravens. And a lot of that had to do with the offense not doing anything and the defense being put in some tough spots like you talked about with scoring off of turnovers and things like that. But, they got gouged all day long in the run game. And I mean, it was hard to watch at times. And I really think they're going to go out there and be like, look, this is what they were doing. We're not giving them these looks anymore. So they're going to make it harder to earn. And I'm just really excited to see the adjustments that Schwartz and that defense makes now that they get a crack at somebody that played successfully against them for the first time this year.
Jacob Roach from BrownsWire.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll dive in a little deeper to the Browns-Ravens matchup Sunday. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Jacob Roach from BrownsWire.com. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson, Pro Football Focus, talking about the Browns-Ravens matchup and how important it is for the Browns and Deshaun Watson as well.
Cleveland have a very defined, there are two, maybe three people you need to be concerned about as a defense. Like if you can guard Amari Cooper, then guard David Njoku, and then just pay attention to Kareem Hunt out of the backfield, you're set, because nobody else is a threat apparently at this so far this year. Like their game plan on defense should be, we're going to force Elijah Moore to carry this offense as a receiver because there's no evidence so far that he can do that.
This is just from a storyline perspective. I used to say this about Cousins. When they paid a lot of money in Minnesota to bring Cousins in, and I said, this is the game, right? This is it for Watson. This is why you brought Deshaun Watson in. This is why
you drop kick Baker Mayfield out of the building to bring Deshaun Watson in, and everything that went along with that. This is why. If you can't do it now, what did you do?
And really, it's the next 2 weeks. It's Ravens and Steelers, the next 2 weeks, in a division where everybody's 5-3 or better. You've got the Jags in a few weeks as well, the Texans, the Jets, the Bengals, the last game of the season. This is the stretch. Why you took the PR hit that you took in Cleveland. You were willing to suck that up for whatever it's worth to bring in Deshaun Watson, because this was supposed to get you over the hump as a team. And I think the Browns, as an organization, have done a really nice job building this team. That's why they're 5-3 despite the quarterback situation this year.
So, Jacob, again, I can't argue with that. I think that is 100% accurate, spot on from beginning to end. That if I think I've said those exact things this week.
Yeah, I feel like I probably have too. Yeah, it's absolutely the truth. You bring in a elite franchise quarterback to elevate everybody around him in the big moments. That's why you pay 3 first-round picks and a bunch of money, and then like they talked about the PR hit. They all thought it would be worth it because of what it would translate to on the field. They thought, yeah, we're going to get a lot of bad PR for what the situation that's surrounding him, and we're going to lose time with him in the first season, which he ends up, missing 11 games. You get all of those things. These are the moments, man. This is when he's got to step up, because they made a great point right now. It's been pretty much David Njoku and Amari Cooper, and that's about it. You'll get some big plays here and there from, like, Elijah Moore will make a big 30-yard catch like he did in the Colts game, and you've had a big run from, I almost called Jerome Ford Jamal Ford for some reason. I don't know why we were going there, but you've had some big plays, a few explosive plays from him, some explosive plays from Pierre Strong, but nobody consistently outside of Cooper and Njoku. And I agree. I think Elijah Moore is that guy. Like, there's been a lot of chemistry between him and Watson in the games or in practice, not in the games. And you're seeing, if they're going to take away Amari Cooper, you have got to find somebody to step up, and it has to be Deshaun Watson, because he should always be the number one offensive threat at the top of that list because of the situation he's in. And right here, everybody's counting you out. They're 6-point underdogs against the Ravens. It's time. This is the moment. Show that everything has been worth it up to this point, because you can elevate the game, and it has to happen now.
Yeah, the other thing that I've been saying is it's not about putting up 400 yards passing. It's not about – he has to make plays in key situations that allow you to win big games. That's the definite. I mean, Tom Brady didn't always win or always throw for 400 yards in a game or always lead the league, but he always made plays late in games that allowed the Patriots to win big games. That's what you're looking for from your quarterback. Ravens coach John Harbaugh talked about what he saw from this Browns defense first go-around.
Very, very, very aggressive. I mean, very attack-oriented. They're kind of a mindset of a puncher. They come out swinging, downhill at every level, tight coverage, all the way up to linebackers downhill versus the run, defensive line upfield. That's kind of their way. They understand who they are, and they play very well, very hard.
On that, the Browns have one of the lowest third down percentages allowed on defense. Just what do you think? What do you see when you watch the tape on there? That makes it so hard to get first downs on that.
Right. I mean, I don't think it's any secret. They're just really good. They can rush the passer and they can cover. That's kind of the combination on third down. Plus, you'll see that they're in third. They have third and long a lot. They get people into third and long a ton because they're so successful on first and second down as well. So it kind of all goes together.
And Jacob, the thing that I've said, and I said it earlier in this show, if you get Lamar Jackson to hold the ball and play from the pocket, he will try to force it and he will make mistakes. Hasn't done that. He's only thrown 3 interceptions this year, which really surprised me. He's taken 21 sacks, but if you keep him in the pocket, you can make him make mistakes.
I really liked the part of that where he just said, well, they're just really good. I was like, yeah, no, it is kind of that simple. I'll say this, too. Lamar can get a little reckless with the football in terms of ball security when he's in the pocket. He's fumbled 10 times this year. He hasn't lost 10 fumbles, but he has fumbled 10 times this year. So, you mix that with the 3 interceptions, and you're looking at he has made 13 or more turnover-worthy plays at that point. And I think that's really where it's got to be. I just wrote up a piece today about Miles getting his 5th forced fumble this weekend. That's what I think is going to happen. They've got to attack the ball security issues, because he's had that. That's the only blemish that I can really see this year, is putting some balls on the ground. And you've got to find a way to do that, because if you can pressure him, like you said, make him force it into tight throwing windows against these coverage corners and that sort of thing, and put him, under duress. They had Clayton Tune under pressure for more dropbacks than he wasn't under pressure. Over 50% of his dropbacks were pressure last week, and it was not good, So they've got to find a way to try to take advantage of Lamar's ball security issues and just they've got to limit those explosive plays and take advantage when turnovers chances are in front of them.
All right, this is ESPN's matchup preview of this game. So bold prediction from ESPN for the Browns-Ravens game. Despite playing a Ravens defense that ranks #1 in efficiency, Deshaun Watson will play his best game in a Browns uniform, giving Cleveland a chance to pull off the upset. Stat to know, Myles Garrett, half a sack away from his 6th straight 10-sack season, which would extend the longest active streak in the NFL. He would be the 7th player with 6 or more straight seasons with 10-plus sacks since it became an official stat in 1982. I wouldn't discount either of those. I don't think it's necessarily a bold prediction. The last 2 games, we're going to discount the Colts game because he probably shouldn't have been out there. Deshaun Watson has looked more and more like the guy you thought you traded all that draft capital for.
Yeah, and I think the biggest stat that comes out of Arizona that gave me the most encouragement and gave me the most hope that it's going to continue to get better was they finally didn't turn the ball over. And I think when I look at that, it wasn't because they were completely avoiding it. It wasn't like Watson wasn't trying to make deep throws, wasn't trying to fit it into some tight windows here and there. Yeah, he didn't throw a ton of intermediate throws as he's still kind of working his way back a little bit. You could tell he needed to shake off a little bit of rust there in that first half, and I think he really kind of came into his own in the second. If he can continue to do that, if he doesn't turn the ball over, there's a real shot it could be his best game, because that chemistry with David Njoku in the red zone specifically, and with Amari Cooper and them drawing up plays in the dirt on the sideline, that's franchise level quarterback stuff. That's the type of stuff, like you said, that you traded for. And it is starting to now he needs to stack it. You got the Tennessee game. Then he comes back, even after missing all that time, plays really well against a bad Cardinals team. But that Cardinals team was really tight in coverage last week. They had some lockdown on some of the Browns wide receivers, and I thought it was pretty good. It's very evident on the all-22 tape. But he really has a great shot. Don't turn the ball over. You got a great opportunity in front of you. You go over on the Myles Garrett side. I feel like he's the defensive player of the year right now. And I just think that I don't think Ronnie Stanley's not had a great history against him. They're going to move him all around. Yeah, I think Myles balls again today.
Yeah,
this weekend.
The other thing, couple of deep balls. He hit a couple against Cardinals, couple more of those, then that will just continue to build on itself. What is the biggest key to this for the Browns to get a win?
Yeah, I think it's just play smart. Play smart and don't try to force things. The turnovers is what I keep coming back to, because that's really been the story of this offense, was that they've been winning in spite of turnovers. And if they can limit those and start playing these games where they only have 1 or less turnover, that's really going to give them a great advantage, because Kevin Stefanski's doing a great job coaching the offense, even with the turnovers. Like, you go out there, and if Baltimore scores, don't think you need to go out and score on one play. You don't need to get it all. Play smart, play fundamentally sound football, take care of the ball, take shots when they're there, and just be smart, and I think you'll be just fine.
Jacob Roach, BrownsWire.com. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jacob.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Jacob Roach, make sure you check him out at BrownsWire.com. Before we go, the Indians, or the Guardians actually, I did it again. Guardians introduced their new manager, Stephen Vogt. Vogt, in his first major league opportunity as a manager, only a year removed from his playing career, talked about becoming the Guardians manager who succeeds Terry Francona.
I'd just like to say that joining the Guardians organization is such a privilege for my family and me. The gnarly hours that they put me through this interview process allowed me a look into this organization and the great people that are a part of it. And I couldn't be more honored to be joining that and hopefully moving that forward in that direction. My goal is to have every single person who puts on a Cleveland Guardian uniform, from the Dominican League all the way up through the big leagues, knows exactly what it means to be a Cleveland Guardian. That's my goal, and I'm going to have a wonderful staff and support group around me in order to do that. I couldn't be more thrilled to be here, and I'm excited to get to know all of you better as we move forward throughout the years.
Again, Stephen Vogt, 39 years old, only a year removed from a player, was identified as a guy that would likely be a key and a good manager in the big league. So the Guardians got their guy. We'll see. 39 years old, his major league first time being a manager at any level. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here Monday at 4 o'clock. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday at 4 talking plenty of Browns Ravens.